I've made so much money this year on slamming the Terry Rozier unders that I'm expecting a call from the feds too. Now, that was something that I tweeted almost 9 months ago now when we got the initial bombshell that Terry Rozier would be investigated for illegal sports betting. And of course, I do my betting on FanDuel, the sponsor of today's video. But it is true. I mean, I did make quite a bit of money betting Terry Rozier unders on everything because we remember how terrible he was. It was such a lock. Before him, I used to take Kyle Lowry unders on shot attempts for every game, and also over on rebounds for the opposing team's power forward because we know the Heat were so small and couldn't rebound. So I need to find some new locks for this season. And when I get those, I'll be sure to let y'all know and make sure you place those bets on FanDuel. But anyways, despite that tweet from me somehow getting 1.5K likes, the feds fortunately did not show up at my door. But of course, we know they showed up at the door of Terry Rozier, where in yesterday's video, I posted my initial reaction to the news, broke down all the information. We talked about the FBI press conference. We discussed some of the implications for the Miami Heat. But in today's video, I want to get a little more into that and also share some of the additional news that came out since I posted yesterday. So there wasn't a ton of additional details that came out after I posted yesterday, but there was a few things I found significant. So let's go through these tweets I bookmarked to make sure I didn't miss anything. Starting with the NBA's official statement that came out like right after I posted yesterday. But all they said is that they're in the process of reviewing the federal indictments, but Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups would be placed on immediate leave. This doesn't change a lot for the Miami Heat other than Terry Rozier won't be around the team, but he wasn't playing anyways. So it's kind of like he wasn't there as is. The important part to remember is that this is still paid leave, meaning he's still getting his paycheck from the Miami Heat. So our salary cap is completely unaffected. I think I saw that Terry Rozier is owed 24 payments of $1.1 million, which makes sense. He's on the last year of his deal. If those are bi-weekly payments, I think it all adds up. So the longer this NBA investigation takes, the more money the Heat owe Terry Rozier. It's a little bit weird because, of course, these guys aren't convicted yet. They're innocent until proven guilty. But the NBA doesn't actually need for them to be found legally guilty in order to ban them, because Jontay Porter was banned for life 2 months before he was ever convicted. The difference here is the NBA already conducted their private investigation and they cleared Terry Rozier. So now it's like they'd have to go back on their word and say, oh, our fault. We missed something there. We made a mistake. Our bad. He actually is guilty, because they can do that at any time. And of course, from a Heat fan perspective, the sooner the better, because then the Heat get that salary cap relief. But it's a little bit weird in terms of public perception because nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. Nobody wants to admit that they missed this massive crime operation going on right under their eyes. However, I think the NBA can get away with that just because they're a basketball organization. They're not the FBI. It's the FBI's job to discover crime. You know, they have more resources than the NBA to do so. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad look for the NBA to go back on their word, but it might be a little bit difficult for them to do because they already found Terry Rozier innocent of any wrongdoing. So we'll see how that whole situation plays out. But until then, there's no differences for the Miami Heat in terms of salary cap relief. One of the other pieces of information that we got is that the FBI revealed that $200,000 in bets were placed on Terry Rozier by his friend De Niro Lannister. I guess they were childhood friends, I read. And that's kind of what triggered the sports books to say, hey, this is a little bit weird. $200,000 worth of bets on Terry Rozier unders all coming in at the same time. Now, people were saying, oh, why would Terry Rozier risk his career? He's already a multimillionaire. Why would he risk it for $200,000? There's a few things wrong with that statement. It's not for $200,000. It's $200,000 in bets that could pay out, of course, much more if those bets were parlayed. I don't know what the odds were. So it's for a lot more. It's for a lot more money than $200,000. Even if it was for millions, you could still argue, why is Terry Rozier risking his life for millions of dollars? He's already a multimillionaire, you know, so that logic still applies. However, there's a few things wrong with that. One, I'm sure Terry Rozier is not doing the money for himself unless he's in some kind of insane debt. Maybe he is. We know Chauncey Billups was working with the mafia. We know Jontay Porter was. Maybe Terry Rozier was in some pretty shady stuff as well. Who knows? Just because these guys make millions of dollars doesn't mean they can't go broke. Unfortunately, we see it all the time. But I also think it's likely that Terry Rozier was doing this for the help of his friends, helping his friends who may not be as well off. Not that I'm trying to stand up for Terry Rozier here, because I don't know the true details of everything going on. But I just like to give guys benefit of the doubt for the most part when it comes to stuff like this, these non-violent crimes. And even if Terry Rozier was trying to help his friends, or if he was in debt, whatever, at the end of the day, addiction is a sickness. So in a way, I almost feel for people that get into these kind of gambling debts and gambling trouble. And I'd rather hope that they get the help that they need instead of putting them down for doing something that I would deem stupid. Just looking at it from the outside. Why would you mess with illegal gambling when there's all kinds of legal gambling you could do? Or just don't gamble at all. You're a multimillionaire. Go buy 100 yachts and enjoy life, But point is, I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts on that, because there was some confusion about how much money Terry Rozier and his friend actually made from this. Moving on, though, we did mention in yesterday's video that later in the day, Terry Rozier would be meeting in federal courts. He did show up to court, and the interesting part is they said that he was wearing a Hornets hoodie, and he was handcuffed and shackled at the ankles. Why do you got to handcuff and put shackles on my guy? Again, it's a non-violent crime. It just seems a little bit excessive. Rozier's attorney called it draconian, which I had no idea what the hell that meant. Maybe I'm stupid, but basically it means like just unnecessary, I guess, or like too much. Like he's doing too much, basically. Evil, however you want to say it. I mean, in context, you get what draconian means. And I don't know, I tend to agree. And as far as the Charlotte Hornets jersey, I don't know if that was intentional to not give the Heat any more bad publicity, or if that's what he had on in his home when he was arrested, or not even home, his hotel in Orlando, because they were still on the road when he got arrested. So it's just a crazy situation. I know Chauncey Billups, they showed the video of him getting bonded out or bailed out, and he was wearing a Clutch Sports hoodie. So who knows if LeBron and those boys put in a good word to bail him out or get him out of, who knows how this stuff works. I don't know. But point is, he was shackled. He was wearing a Hornets jersey. I read that the FBI initially wanted to put his bail at $10 million, where they were able to settle for $6 million. And Terry Rozier put up his property as collateral for that. So that was the bond for that. And now we move on to where it gets very interesting, as Brian Windhorst said some pretty heavy allegations, in which he said the sports books caught the irregular betting on Terry Rozier the day it happened. Rozier didn't play the rest of the season, and he had faked the injury. So it wasn't the cause of the injury. The NBA pulled him. So Brian Windhorst is essentially saying that the NBA just kind of pulled Terry Rozier while they investigated him, and they used this fake injury as an excuse because they wanted to sweep it under the rug what Terry Rozier was doing. Now, these are serious allegations because it means that the NBA hid the fact of this major investigation from the Miami Heat before they traded for him, and that is a very bad thing to do. And I tend to believe Brian Windhorst because I don't think you just kind of throw out these accusations if they're baseless. And also, I find Brian Windhorst to be a credible reporter. I don't think he's just some ESPN loudmouth like Kendrick Perkins who just says things. This is not the type of thing you say unless you have information on it. And of course, if this is true, that's very bad for the Miami Heat. The NBA essentially screwed us over. Barry Jackson confirms that Heat was unaware of suspicious Rozier removing himself from game incident or any NBA investigation when Miami traded for him. So this clears the Miami Heat of taking the risk, knowing what was going on with Rozier and taking the risk. Nobody alerted the Miami Heat. And then Barry Jackson also confirms that the NBA was alerted to the suspicious betting activity involving Rozier on the night it happened. They cleared him under its own private investigation. Thus, the NBA felt no obligation to tell the Heat or any other teams to steer clear of trading him. All very unfortunate. Basically saying that the Miami Heat got screwed. So Barry Jackson sums it up pretty nicely here, in which he says it's become increasingly clear in the past 24 hours that information was withheld from the Heat and the Heat was wronged in all of this. He does go on to say that whether the Heat try to rectify this must play out, and he highly doubts that the Heat should sue the NBA. So it's clear, man, whether the NBA did their own investigation and cleared him or not, that is information that the Miami Heat need to know, or any team should know when trading for Terry Rozier. And the reason the NBA withheld that information is because they were hoping to sweep it under the rug because, of course, it's a pretty big scandal, and now it's coming all back to bite them in the ass. So if this is something that the NBA did to try to cover their own ass, they better make up for it and find a way to give the Miami Heat their pick back. I think the most fair way to handle this, which I've been seeing all over Twitter, I saw Ira tweet it, and I completely agree, is if the Hornets can't be forced to return our 2027 first round pick, which I understand why logistically that may be difficult, then at least give the Heat a compensatory first round pick in the same year, meaning that there would be 31 total first round picks in the 2027 draft. I don't see why that can't be possible. There's been times in the past where the NBA will remove a pick from a team and there's only 29 picks in a round. We can go back as recent as Kyle Lowry when they said that we tampered with him, which is BS because the Heat lost the second round pick, but the Raptors didn't lose any picks. It takes two teams to tamper. You could have easily said the Raptors were tampering for Goran Dragic too, but they didn't lose a pick. The Heat would lose a second round pick. And there was only 29 second round picks in that year's draft. So why can't you add an extra first round pick to 2027? And that will be critical for the Heat because of the Stepien rule. It will unlock another 2 first round picks for the Miami Heat, meaning they would have 4 to trade. Right now, the Heat have 2, and just getting a pick in that year would mean we have 4, which is very critical as we approach this season, get to the trade deadline. Maybe a guy like Giannis becomes available. Maybe it's someone else. Who knows? The point is, if the Heat could somehow end up with 4 tradable first-round picks, you're in the ball game to really get a whale if they become available. And I think it's the right thing to do. So I want to end this video by saying, do the right thing, NBA. You try to be shady, you try to sweep this thing under the rug, and it came back to bite you in the ass. You're the one who needs to take the bullet, not the Miami Heat. But that's all I got to say about this situation for now. Hopefully the next news that we get is that the NBA officially voided Terry Rozier's contract, which would be good for the Heat, but I guess really bad for Terry. And I kind of do wish the best for him too. And I'm not sure both of those things can happen. You know, flexibility for the Heat and Terry Rozier is found in a sense, but anyways, we'll see what happens. Right now, I want to shout out FanDuel one more time because the Miami Heat take on the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. And I love Bam Adebayo at +108 to score 20 points. I know Bam struggled in game 1, but he always takes that matchup versus Jaren Jackson Jr. personally. So I love to get the plus odds for 20 points on him. I'm still in Orlando here, so I'll probably be busy at nights. I'll be watching the game on my phone wherever I'm at, but I might not have time for a post game, so just keep that in mind. But after tonight, going forward the rest of the season, I will have post games for every single game. So make sure y'all subscribe so you don't miss it. Also, make sure to like this video because your support is greatly appreciated. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out, everyone.
Pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.